So we're going to be making healthy quesadillas, and first we're going to make the salsa. So we've got spring onions, we've got tomatoes, and we've got an avocado. And we're going to trim the spring onions, just take the ends off, any outside leaves. And we've got 3 here. If you've got smaller ones, obviously you can have 4 or 5 smaller spring onions, or leave them out if that's something you don't like, and perhaps you could use red onion very finely chopped instead. And trim the tops a little bit. And everything for the salsa needs to be cut very finely, because otherwise the chunks fall out when we make the quesadillas. So we'll chop the spring onions. Try and chop them finely and using the claw technique. Spring onions into the bowl. So we'll put all the ingredients into the bowl when they're chopped. And next we're going to chop the tomatoes. Again, these are quite large tomatoes, but you could easily use perhaps 6 smaller tomatoes. Just take a little piece of the cores out and try and chop them finely. Again, ridge technique to chop them down, and then claw to chop them more finely. It's worth taking a little bit more time to chop the tomatoes and make sure they're nice and finely chopped, because it really does make a difference to this dish. Put the tomatoes into the bowl. Next we've got an avocado. This one's quite ripe, I think, which makes it easy to get the stone out, but slightly overripe probably. But this one isn't particularly good. Just take a few pieces off. And we'll try and, it's easier and safer to peel it with fingers than to use a knife. This one's slightly overripe, often under and harder to do. Take that piece out. Then we'll just chop the avocado. Piece out as well. Again, try and chop it quite finely. We just all the ingredients for the salsa except for a little bit of oil and some lemon juice. Just want to stir it and make sure we're breaking up any pieces of tomato that are still quite large. So we'll halve the lemon and just squeeze the equivalent of a teaspoonful. Put a little bit of juice, probably think about a dessert spoonful, and we'll also add some olive oil. Just about half a tablespoonful of olive oil. A little bit of black pepper to give it some flavour. Obviously you can adjust the olive oil and the black pepper to your taste. That's the salsa. I've already got my hob on, so I'm going to put the frying pan on. Add about a teaspoonful of oil. It can just be vegetable oil for this one. Go brush it over so that it's even. So just using a pastry brush, but you could use probably a little bit of paper to brush it perhaps before you put it on the hob if you don't have a pastry brush. But we've got a nice coating of oil on the pan. And it's better with a non-stick pan as well to make the quesadillas. I'm going to put one of the quesadillas in and just move it around a little bit to make sure it's coated with oil, and then that also allows you to test the heat. When you can feel the heat through the tortilla, it's ready to add the salsa. And we add the salsa just to half of the tortilla, not to overfill. It's easy to overfill it and then the filling will come out. The mixture should make two quesadillas, but it does depend on the size of the avocado and the tomatoes. Add the salsa, and add a generous amount of cheese. And you can add the cheese either below or on top of the salsa. It really doesn't make much difference because you're going to turn the tortilla over. Turn the tortilla in half, press it down and move it into the middle of the pan where it will get the most heat. And next we're going to turn it over. And it's best to flip it from the open side and turn it over. And then we're waiting for the cheese to melt. It doesn't really need to cook very much, but just enough to melt the cheese and to heat the tortilla well through. Just looking for the cheese to start melting. It's just going to take a few seconds longer. Okay, that one's done.